Okay. Well, I'd like to start off first by thanking all of you for coming to my presentation today. I know there are competing presentations, so I appreciate that you chose mine. And I'd also like to thank the Mars Society for being kind enough to invite me here today to talk with all of you. All right, that being said, my name's James Gedra. I have my doctoral degree in clinical psychology, and I actually did my postdoc here at Wright State University a few years ago, so it's nice to be back. But I'm currently at Murray State University, which is in Murray, Kentucky. Don't worry, there's a reason we're small. So basically, what I wanted to talk to you today about is motivation to settle space. There are many presentations on how to settle space. I'm very concerned about actually creating interest in settling space. And what I developed is a space settlement survey, which is a questionnaire measure to actually assess what is motivating individuals to be interested in space at this time. So before I start talking about the space settlement survey, I want to talk about motivation first and why it's relevant to exploring. And in order to do that, I thought I'd do what many people do with space settlement and draw historical analogies. Specifically, what was happening in the...
You get to work. You have to move it in a circle, I think, before it picks up the mouse. Maybe you're out of range.
Let's see. Oh!
Yeah. Yeah, you are out of range. Just use the thumb wheel and go back and forth. Push forward.
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Okay, I'll just go over there and click every once in a while. All right, basically, if you look at the 15th century, you had two civilizations, or two countries, China and Spain, both deciding, after not really being involved in exploration, we're going to get into it. Obviously, China did it a little bit earlier, but you had China's Admiral Zheng He, and then you had Spain's Christopher Columbus. Quick show of hands, how many have heard of Christopher Columbus? How many people have heard of Admiral Zheng? Okay, obviously I'm at a space conference. Basically, but still, 2-1 in favor of Christopher Columbus. I think that tells you something about their ability of success. But let's look at them starting off. The main issues you usually think about with exploring are technology and finance. And you should, because if you don't have the technology, you're not going to get there. And if you don't have the money, you're never going to be able to purchase the technology. So let's look at China and Spain. Originally, China had much better technology. Their ships were incredibly better than Christopher Columbus's. If you look at the reconstructions of Christopher Columbus's ship, you are amazed at how small they are. And China's ships were huge. Their armada was much better. They had experienced sailors who'd been to the Middle East before because they sailed west. So they had better technology than Columbus. They had better financing than Spain. Spain had just gone out of war, re-liberating their lands from the Moors. So they were practically broke. China had lots of money. So if you look at it, for those reasons alone, it looked like China should come out ahead. But even more interesting is if you look at their success. China, under Admiral Zheng, was incredibly successful on their first trip. They made money. They made trade deals. They were able to get other countries to give gifts to China. While Christopher Columbus was a horrible failure, if you think about it. He was trying to get to Asia, wasn't even close. Should have had a globe with him or something. But also, he didn't make any money. And to show you how much of a failure it was, the only thing they really came back with was tobacco. And the first guy who was smoking it actually was put to death because he was breathing fire, so therefore he had to be a demon. So overall, the first trip was a loss. That's why smoking is bad for you. So if you look at all kinds of stuff, what was the main difference? China, clearly, because no one heard of Admiral Zheng, failed. And the reason why was motivation. If you look at China, from the very beginning, the Chinese court said, we shouldn't explore. They actually thought, we're the best. Other people should come to meet us, not us going to meet them. With that mentality, it only took that emperor who started the exploration to die, and at his death, they decided no more exploring, and they took their great fleet and destroyed it. So they were, at the end, They were just at where they started, and that's what happened. Of course, Spain took a different route. They decided to actually continue exploring, even though they failed at first, and they eventually entered a golden age, became incredibly wealthy and incredibly powerful as a result of their explorations. So why even mention this? Well, I kind of want to ask, is history, well, I can't because it didn't move forward, is history repeating? If we look at it, currently the U.S. is at a crossroads in space exploration. NASA is going to soon be without a way to get man into space. We're going to have to hitchhike and borrow a ride from the Russians, which no one would have predicted 30 years ago. Furthermore, many people in the U.S. are against NASA getting any money. They feel that they should be used on more successful government programs, whatever those are. So basically, we could see an end to space flight like China head into their exploration in a year or so. So the question is, are we going to be like Spain or are we going to be like China? What's going to make that decision? All right. Technology is clearly not the problem. Technology was the issue. We would have been on Mars decades ago. We were originally supposed to go from the moon to Mars. It was just the next step. We landed on the moon 40 years ago, and some people doubt if we can even make it back to the moon now. So that's not really progress. We've sent many robots, many satellites all around Mars, so we can clearly get stuff there semi-safely. Then Robert Zubrin's idea of Mars Direct has been around for quite some time now. His book's been out in press at least for 10 years. His information clearly shows that we could do a mission. It's financially possible. We have the current technology that we could actually pull it off. So what is the problem if it's not technology? The problem is motivation. That's the real issue. And a very basic definition of motivation is what causes a person to act. That's what is the key issue. And I'll be honest with you, it doesn't take a rocket to figure out, as a social scientist to figure out what motivates people. So that's going to probably explain why we were not so successful. I don't really know how many social scientists are in NASA. But definitely sociologists, political scientists, but most applicable by far is going to be psychologists. Mind you, I'm mildly biased by that. But anyways, psychologists, because we specifically focus on behavior. We have volumes and volumes of research showing what motivates people. So it would make sense that the field that is going to be most relevant is psychology. Interestingly enough, though, if we look at psychology's role and interaction with space, it's been hardly present at all. Only one subfield of psychology ever really interacts with NASA and space organization. In of technology. They're very interested in the interface between humans and technology and humans. If anyone saw that documentary on the development of Constellation, they actually showed human factors literally trying to figure out where should we put the displays, how many things can you pay attention to at once. So that shows that at least we're somewhere in the building. But we're not at all dealing with the issues of motivation. So while the scientific study of motivation in space exploration has been neglected, which is a shame, we have actually been dabbling for a long time in trying to manipulate public interest. However, this is our past attempts. I'll just say that. Our past attempts have covered a lot of different areas. First, science fiction novels and movies. If you were here Friday night, we had a panel discussion with authors of science fiction, as well as covering every movie to mention Mars, and there are a lot, as evident by the 2.5-hour presentation, which was excellent. But clearly, that in 1955, and Disney with Man in Space started talking about actual space exploration and what it would look like for the general public. Today, National Geographic and Discovery, it seems almost monthly, are producing documentaries on space in one way or another. And then you have NASA museums. Definitely there's Cape Canaveral, but they're all over the country. In fact, but not all of them are NASA, but definitely space related. And for example, in Wapakoneta, less than 2 hours north of here on I-75, is the Neil Armstrong Museum, which is a great museum, and they have an X-15 outside. So it's a very interesting thing. And then we have pro-space websites and organizations like the Mars Society. And then we have the NASA Regional Educator Resource Center. This is actually at my university, in the middle of nowhere in Murray, Kentucky. We actually have a woman in the library that's supposed to do outreach for high school and students, though I don't really know how successful that is. Because of this, we don't know what these things accomplish. We don't know what NASA is. As a high school student, after watching the Discovery Channel, are voters more likely to support NASA for any of this? We have no idea. So we've been putting all these ideas out there, but we have absolutely no idea if they're effective. It'd be like engineers just launching off rockets before doing tests on them. We're like, well, we'll find out. We'll see what happens. That's a horrible way. It's completely unscientific. So in order to increase interest in general, the general public, and also specific subpopulations, what we need is to understand what is currently motivating them to be interested in space exploration. So in order to accomplish this, what we need is a way to measure interest in space. So that's what I was interested in. Before starting this project, I was looking throughout the literature to find measures. I didn't find anything. If I want to find out if these interventions are successful, I need a dependent variable. So that's why I developed the Space Settlement Survey to try to get that dependent variable. So my sample were a bunch of college students. Half of them were from a Midwestern private university, and half of them were from a Southern public university. They tried to get some diversity in my sample, which is always nice. And what I did is I combed through the pro-space literature to try to find out every single reason anyone has ever given to settle in space. And I found tons of reasons. Personal experience, wanting to go directly into space and travel yourself. Pursuit of knowledge, just learning for learning's sake, like how did the moon form. Business opportunities, making money. They don't care if they're making rockets or sprockets, but they want to make money. Go into space because we're able to. People have argued, we've had the technology for 40 years, we should just go. This is absurd. And then there's national interest or competition, which has a lot to do with a space race mentality of my country has to be #1 and we must dominate. Then we have going into space to solve problems on Earth, so that would be improving quality of life, spin-off technologies such as flame-resistant clothing. That's a nice perk. And going into, let's see what else we have here. Environmentalism, and also to keep the human species going and not have one of those comets take us out. All right. So what I did is I did a factor analysis with a Varimax rotation, for all of you who like statistics, to determine which of these items are, which of these factors are actually motivating. So we came up with 4 individual factors. Each one of these factors is independent and is controlling for some of the variance of explaining what is motivating people to be interested in space. So in the next slides, I'll explain each factor and give you some examples of the questions. All right, so one factor was survival of mankind moving off the planet. These were some of the questions. Basically, all of them had to do with the fear of being wiped out and believing that we just need to eventually move off the planet to some extent. Not completely, but at least partially. So you have agreeing with Stephen Hawking that human survival depends upon finding homes in space. If we do not leave Earth, the entire species might be eliminated by, a comet or something. And the Earth is going to run out of resources as our population increases. All right. The second factor, benefit me directly going into space. These variables have to do with either personally going into space to find out what it's like to see another planet, or being an explorer like Christopher Columbus. But it's them directly going into space. That's the key issue. Act now. I really view this factor as like an infomercial. You know, call now in the next 5 minutes. But that's what it's really about, loss of opportunity. And what's interesting is it's actually two factors kind of combined. I thought